So something going, some technical glitches, but we are live now. A little bit late. My partner Nixie will be back after dealing with the cat situation.
They love.
So
Stop being a shit.
you can hear her cursing.
Oh, who is that? Someone come in?
No, we weren't live.
Huh. Bye, Santa. Wait, the whole time?
The whole time.
The whole time?
Yes, the first 5 minutes.
Yes, I am wearing my pajama pants if anybody sees it. Oh, good.
She is
no, it's
so
waist
cold. Therefore, babushka from the old country of
Okay,
Texas.
look, y'all. I had to work at the coffee shop today. The closer got sick, so I was there the entire day, and it was Halloween. Our theme was Mean Girls, so I was dressed as a sexy mouse. I spent 10 hours in a corset. Forgive me for being comfy.
Babushka
Babushka.
from the old country of Texas.
Axe and Jacks.
So, well, let's get started again.
Started again. Alrighty. Welcome.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Blessed Samhain.
Blessed Samhain. Again, disclaimer. These are our designated hot cocoa mugs. We are not celebrating Christmas before Halloween. We generally refuse to do that, but cocoa mugs.
And these are the hot cocoa mugs. So.
Yep.
And also the Glühwein mugs.
Yep. We use them for like festive holiday beverages.
So here we are.
Here we are. We're here to celebrate two things. First off is Sam Hain's birthday, which everybody missed because
There's cupcakes.
because apparently we weren't live when we thought we were, but we have cupcakes. Woo! And then to celebrate the book release of Joanna's new book, there it went, The Ghosts of Shattered Lives, under her new pen name, Rebecca St. Clair.
Book 1 of A Tale of Two Crowns trilogy.
Now, if you think, wow, that doesn't look like a new book, that looks like it's been well read. That's because it has. I will say this is probably my favorite of my beautiful wife's books. I've already read volume 2. I'm going to try to avoid spoilers. Oops. And Joanna's about halfway through with volume 3.
Mm-hmm.
I have been holding off reading ahead on volume 3 simply because I don't want to have to. I want to be able to just binge the whole damn thing.
But you're not going to do that.
Because this one I binged, and the second one I read as she was writing it, and honestly, I don't have the patience for that.
Which made editing so much easier.
Yeah? Did it?
Yes, because I didn't have to do the whole book at one time.
Oh, maybe I'll go ahead and read a few chapters then.
It's kind of why I've been pushing my editor to get moving.
True.
Because otherwise, you'll have to read it again with the paper. I get a paperback proof.
All right. Do you want to talk about, a little summary of the book? Talk about some of the characters?
Are you going to read the blurb since you now know the pronunciation?
No, because I'll still fuck it up. For the record, the blurb on the back of the book is massive. None of that is like author by or anything. That is all book description. I feel like you did kind of drop a spoiler. I didn't think of it, but this is kind of a big spoiler. Like,
No, I
don't know.
No.
Because now you know when they get there that's what they're going to find.
You know what they're going to find. You don't know what it means. But also keep this in mind. This was supposed to be one book. It's not the first part of a trilogy. So this is the first. This is the inciting incident.
Yeah. Cool. Now, true. If you had gone full book, that would be like yeah. Yeah.
This is
that
the
makes way
inciting
more
incident.
sense. That makes way more sense. Yeah.
So
what are you for Halloween this year?
I'm an author who's dealing with the stress of releasing a book while everyone else just tries to stay comfortable.
Do you want me to go put the sexy mouse costume
No.
back on?
If you'd have kept it on, I would have been a sexy cat.
A bit fucking stupid and hilarious, and I kind of say no.
But anyway.
But that would have put me at like 14, 15 hours in a corset?
I do that all the time.
Yeah, you do it all the time. I don't.
So, since the pronunciation is a little bit hard for her,
Y'all, no. If you read the book without knowing the pronunciations, like seriously, she just blew my mind because I was like, oh, is that how that's pronounced?
I mean, you've corrected my Irish before, and yet here we are. While returning to Floratia for her coronation as Cesara Van Diamante of the Midnight Court, itinerant monster hunter Gwenera Keelan receives a request from the director of the Society for Afterlife and Arcane Research. A series of deadly hauntings by infernal entities and violent ghosts plague the citizens of the Atharian Empire. The Society requests Gwenera lend her skills in the defense of the innocent. But Gwenera was not the only hunter the Society hired. The director also requested the aid of Caspar Richter, Grand Master for the Holy Order of St. Arnulf Ironhand, an order of witch, heretic, vampire, and traitor hunters beholden to the blessed Emperor of the Atharian Empire. Grand Master Richter sent his daughter Karina as a representative of the Empire's noble defenders, who 21 years earlier executed Gwen's birth parents for allegedly harboring Marius Better, leader of the vampire insurgents, the Crimson Fangs. When Gwen and Karina investigate the violent hauntings at St. Hildegard, the open-armed orphanage, they uncover a mechano-magical device designed to transform suffering and fear into powerful arcane energies. As more of these devices emerge, they begin to suspect they have found themselves in the middle of a war fought in the shadows that may soon explode into the light. Castlevania meets Bloodborne meets your D&D world that moves forward into its own version of a Victorian society where magic and not steam or electricity powers technology.
I believe you used the term Arcanapunk at one point.
I have used the term Arcanapunk, but no one really knows what that means.
I dig it, though.
And the closest term to it that actually exists in the lexicon is Gaslamp Fantasy. But Gaslamp Fantasy is alternate history where we go back and reimagine.
What about Manapunk?
No.
No.
As I was saying, where we go back and reimagine the Victorian world with supernatural elements. Say, Susanna Roundtree's Miss Sharp's Monsters, or the Critical Role Candela Obscura. Things of that nature. You know, it's the what happens if the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were actually a thing with actual magical powers, the way people imagine magic to be. That's what Gaslamp is. I chose to take a world and move it forward historically. How would things be different if we had a society with magic? Because a lot of fantasy worlds don't think about police forcing. Cops would have someone on staff to cast Zone of Truth. You would have someone who could, commune with the dead to see who committed the crime. Otherwise, what's the point of having magic in a world if you don't use it? Or else you have to justify why it can only work for certain people and certain, maybe small town cops wouldn't, but large city cops would definitely have a wizard and a paladin or two on staff, or at least on retainer. Magical weapons would be military grade, and you couldn't just have a fire sword without a permit, or you couldn't have magical weapons unless you were moving as part of the military. So how would these things change as the world moved forward? And so we have things like the Crystal Rail, a basically fast travel train that allows for super fast travel to major cities. Mechano-magical wagons, Model T cars, if you will, that are cheaper for the average person up front, Then horses. Horses then become status symbols for the aristocracy because they can afford the upkeep, the land for the horses, and they can afford to take the time for slow travel. How would we reimagine all of these things? How would these technologies impact society and medicine, disease, policing, city size, family, all of these things? These are things we don't get to think about in a lot of fantasy games because we want to focus on adventure. But in a world that's moved forward, why would you need adventurers? Or wouldn't they receive even greater praise because you're going into the few wilds that are left, the things that can actually make us afraid?
Let's talk about our three. That's a good segue to talk about our three protagonists. Let's start with Gwen.
We will start with our primary, one of the two primary point of view characters, Gwynnera Keelan Van Diamante, born to snow elf parents who were innkeepers in the town of Fachries in what was once the independent nation of Frome, but is now a vassal state or a colony of the Itharian Empire. After she was, when the entire town was leveled on suspicion of harboring a traitor / rebel / terrorist, depending on your point of view of Marius and what he's doing.
He's a dick.
You're not good at spoiler avoiding.
It's my personal opinion. It's not like it's that much of a spoiler. We figured that out pretty early on.
She was carted off to St. Hildegard's orphanage, an orphanage that takes great pride in beating, burning, and starving any potential treason or disloyalty to the empire out of children. She was then adopted by a Floresian noble family, the Van Diamantes, and taken to their castle in Utrezo. They happened to be nobles in the Floresian court overall, but her grandfather by adoption was the Caesar of the Midnight Court. He was the king, if you will, of the vampires in Floresia, recognized as only slightly below the king of Floresia in status. And of course, she received love. She was treated as one of the family. At 21, she was given the choice to become a vampire, which she made freely. And then 6 years after that, a family that held a grudge against the Van Diamantes, the Richters, stormed the castle at sunrise and slaughtered her family. It was by the fortune and planning of a servant that she was able to grab a couple of training weapons, a mechano-magical horse, which she quickly sold, and escape. Over the 6 years, after a series of events, she ended up becoming a fairly famous itinerant monster hunter with the moniker of the Silver Scourge because of her white hair and her silvered blade. Traveling across the world, across the continents, not just between the nations of Floresia and the Itharian Empire, but across Deamot to the continent of Graneth, to Eulapines, the other continent, which we will start to learn more about those later in the series, but traveling to help those who need help. Quiet, a bit introspective, somewhat avoiding returning home, because as someone who's only been a vampire for 9 years total, and as someone who's only lived in Floresia for 19, she didn't feel confident or ready to rule over individuals who were, at times a few thousand years older than her. And even though as an elf she'd have a 1,000-year lifespan, the extreme near immortality of the vampire meant that there would be people who were far older and thus had way more experience than her, and she didn't feel prepared.
All right. Next up, we have Karina Richter, which we've already mentioned her family a bit.
We have mentioned her family. Karina is the only daughter of Kaspar Richter and Marlanya Skajic. She's not exactly the golden child of the family. She's the black sheep. There was an incident a few years ago that caused some shame to the family that will get revealed throughout the book. But she is compensating by being very, very dogmatic in the religious fervor that the Empire has put forward and that the Holy Order dictates. And for those, the Holy Order is very, very strict. Military, religious order, diet, boiled meat on Sundays, oats with just water, salt, and oatmeal, fruits, vegetables. Think your Kellogg diet from the 19th century. We have these very sparse diets because they calm the nerves, they reduce the passions, and they keep you free of sin. So that type of a diet, it gets joked about when she's on her first hunt that, she won't handle anything stronger than milk. And so it becomes sort of a little gag. And I didn't want to take the standard, what's now a standard anime pairing of the Paragon and the Lancer. So you have I'm the hero, I'm the good guy, I'm the brooding loner who goes off on their own. The Kal-El Bruce Wayne dynamic. I wanted two paragons, but I wanted two different types of paladin oaths, if you will. One, an oath of protection. One, an oath of the crown. And so they agree on what to do. They don't agree on how to go about it. And that's where some of that, some morality, because, that Fromian vulgarity and that Floratian debauchery.
And now we'll segue into my favorite of the trio, the emotional support Ashbourne.
Courage Ferndon, the teal-skinned Ashbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Ashbourne, those who are connected by difference from the plane of Asphodel, which is where the damned reside, ruled over by the king of ash and bone. His family isn't damned, but somewhere along the line, someone made a deal with one of the lords of Asphodel, or perhaps someone. No. Someone may have crossed one, and so the bloodline was then decided to forcibly resemble infernal beings. Teal skin, horns. They have tails. He's happy-go-lucky up front. He chose the name Courage because, he wants to have courage in talking to this girl he fancies. And since he's not good at it, he figures if he chooses the name, he'll learn to live up to it. But as we soon learn, he is questing because his mother has taken ill with a condition that no one can name, and no physician, no wizard, no priest has yet to be able to identify. And so he made a deal with the Corvidae, the tripartite goddesses of dark magic and death. And he is kind of slacking off on it because he has ADHD and he gets distracted easily. So, and Gwen ends up saving his life, and he decides to tag along. He is the emotional support, but in addition to, he's the brains of the group.
And the captain of the ship.
He's the brains of the group. He's the one who, if I need some sort of exposition, he gives it in character. He knows how the technologies work.
And if you go and look on her author page, she's had some lovely art.
My
done
author
with the
page, my Instagram, it's all over my social media. Giving you sort of little bits of tropes, what tropes say, some of the tropes they embody, some quotes that represent their personality, some goofy things dealing with, potential clashes and relationships and things of that nature.
What? Give us some dumb trivia. Give us like a random little
Like what?
weird tidbit about each of the three.
Like what?
I don't know.
Why would you do tidbits? This isn't
I know.
academia.
I don't know. It could be fun. I don't know. It's where my brain went.
Gwen reads the equivalent of Penny Dreadfuls, Torvald Tinglers. Courage is a cinnamon roll who loves cinnamon rolls.
And the one who makes them.
But he also talks with his mouth full a lot. Karina, tidbits about Karina, because a lot of Karina will almost come across as someone who some things will feel forced, but they were planned from the start. She is. Her olive skin will stand out against the pale blonde blue of her family because she favors her mother, who is a very, very different ethnicity. And I will be bringing some of their stuff in much later, which is when it was planned in the book in Act 3, which will now be Book 3 of the trilogy, which is where I just finished drafting, as well as, was it in Book 2 that we get no, it's in Book 3 where we learned the name of the illness for Courage's mother.
Yeah, we haven't, because I've only read 1 and 2. We have not learned that yet.
Book 3 is where the diagnosis happens and treatment begins.
Woo! Oh.
So things of that nature are happening.
I forgot to turn this down, and the nibbling is texting us.
Don't tell the nibbling to go on Facebook.
We got trick-or-treating pictures.
Okay, so she's trick-or-treating, so we've got to we'll talk to her later.
One of her friends is dressed as the 4th Doctor.
I approve. But because the 4th Doctor is the best Doctor. But no, that's the 3 of them. It's different. It's probably something I probably should have seen myself writing, given my obsession with Castlevania, Gothic fantasy, Bloodborne, Lies of P.
Here's a fun question. If you were going to cast a film based on the new book series.
I want an animated.
Well, who would you cast for voices?
I don't know. I haven't planned that far ahead. I mean, given that Gwen would need someone who would do really good Irish. Courage, I need someone who's good Scottish, but who can play innocent, but intelligent.
David Tennant.
No.
That's exactly where my brain went.
You don't get to have David Tennant for everything.
I mean, there are plenty of other
The
things.
4th best Doctor.
We're getting a divorce.
Okay.
The 4th best?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have a fight here, y'all. How?
Number 4 is the best Doctor. Tom Baker is number 1. Paul McGann is number 2. The fashion and the elegance.
I do like McGann. I feel like McGann is highly underrated. Okay.
He is, because he didn't get the time that he deserved.
Is he better than Tennant, though?
Yes, he is. His fashion is also better.
He also gets points off for appearing in Queen of the Damned.
It's not his fault. He needs money. I mean, Tom Baker did Fort Boyard, which...
Don't even know what that is. All right.
It's a French reality
Who's
show.
3?
Number 12.
True. I haven't
Peter
seen any
Capaldi. We came this close to the Doctor having a call, telling someone to fuck off with Capaldi, and you could see it in his mouth.
No, I love Tennant. He is one of the best demons.
Matt Smith gave us Vincent and the Doctor.
David Tennant.
Fezzes are cool.
David Tennant gave us Blink.
Yes, and you would prefer Vincent and the Doctor to Blink, and you know that.
Yes, I do, because I don't like scary shit, and I'm still traumatized from that episode of Doctor Who.
Besides, Fezzes are cool.
Stetsons are cool.
Bow ties are cool.
And
we got so much more with River's song with Matt Smith,
ooh.
which really deepened the Doctor. Which then we get to Capaldi and
like
River is
okay. 11's companions are definitely some of the best companions. I will say that. Very Tennant, we get Donald Noble from.
But with Capaldi,
and we're getting them again, and I am excited.
With Smith, we got to see the relationship with River develop, which led to Capaldi, where she gives this, he doesn't love me. He's got too big. He will not. And then you hear, hello, sweetie.
You know, gotta think of it. The first River Song episode was a Tennant episode, though. And it was a very good... Actually, that was my first Doctor Who episode. Silence in the Library was my first episode.
So we get
Random
River,
fun fact.
but we develop it with 11. And the silence was brilliant. So, yeah. But no. There. But no, I mean, I would need someone, and with Karina, you need someone who can handle the...
Donna Noble is Honor.
Fine, I'll take Donna. I will take...
Catherine Tate.
Catherine Tate is her name.
Catherine Tate would be so good as Honor. Honor is Courage's sister. She is a very brief spot. She shows up a little bit in book 1. She shows up way more in book 2. And
she has reason to in book 2.
Oh my God, Catherine Tate would be perfect for Honor, wouldn't she?
But look, I don't care. I know.
Oh my God, Tate and Tennant for Courage and Honor would be so good.
If you were doing fantasy live action, it must be low fantasy.
You said you wanted it to be animated, though, so we're just going.
That's why I want it animated, because this has actual magic.
I feel like Tate and Tennant, because they have that dynamic.
And let's be honest, fantasy fight scenes work better when they're animated.
Yeah.
Because,
especially when magic is involved.
But no offense, The Witcher and Game of Thrones fight scenes cannot hold a candle to what we get in Castlevania.
I will say the D&D movie did pretty good with the fight scenes.
Yeah, but still, that was one of those things that I don't want that level of. I need a level of darkness, and it's so much easier and cheaper to convey when you can actually just put shadows.
You darkness? No. I'm literally the only thing with color on the screen.
So yeah, this is a world, and I will say that because of some weird stupidity apparently, if you get the paperback through Amazon, you will have an edition that does not have the continent map.
Okay, so Amazon, where can we get the copy with the continent map?
Anywhere else.
I want to see the map. You can show me the map.
I've shown you the map.
I want to point out the map was my idea.
You have seen the map before it was your idea. Yes. Yes, you have. I will show you after the stream, but you have seen it many, many times.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say about the new book?
I mean, you do have the questions.
I do.
I sent them to you.
Okay. I guess I can look at those. I was going to say real quick, what is the progress on the next Sam Hain book? Since it is Sam's birthday, we're not going to neglect it.
30% through. I will be revamping a few things. Like I said, I was going to work on that for tonight, but then again, I got an ADHD thought it was supposed to be only one book, but when I finished the first arc, I was at 90,000 words, and since the average for a fantasy novel now is around 110 to 120,000, I couldn't finish the story in 30,000 words. So I had to move something from Act 2 to the end of Act 1 in order to give a satisfying ending.
How are we talking about Sam?
I'm talking about this right now.
Okay. Okay. Ignore my question. It's okay.
No, I answered your question.
Sorry, you told me to look a thing up. You know I can't hear what I'm reading. Really weird thing. If I'm like reading something, someone could be having a conversation and I will not hear anything. Or it'll be like background noise. Like I won't comprehend any of it. It's really weird.
No, because I answered your question. I said because ADHD brought me to this, which was supposed to be one book, and now I'm going into why it's a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I couldn't finish the story in 30,000 words, or even 40,000. So I had to move some things around in the outline and turn it into a trilogy. But Blue Moon, as I said, is about 30% finished. I've got that planned. I might be changing some things toward the end, just to do something different. I'm not sure how because of other things that have popped up related to some of the inspirations for the second of the two cases that I may not want to elevate right now.
That's a fun question. What do you think would happen if Gwen and Karina got in a fight with Sam and Destiny?
Given there's technological differences, that's kind of an issue. And it's not a fair question.
We do have firearms.
Muskets versus flintlocks versus Heckler and Koch military grade firearms. It's not a fair question. So, because it's not a fair situation. And why do you assume they would fight?
I don't know.
I realize that when men
It's a hypothetical question, baby. I'm just trying to ask questions and make it interesting.
That's your standard. That's the standard comic book nerd question. Let's make these characters fight, and
I'm a nerd.
And I don't think they would fight. I mean, given there are certain situations that they have in common, because I think Destiny and Courage would stop fighting. It would stop the fights. One might be more successful than the other.
So what inspired you to write this new book series anyway?
Well, as I've said a few times tonight, my love of Castlevania, of Gothic fantasy.
I'm going to go with the notes.
I know.
Note. I'm tired. No brain.
That is kind of why I gave you those ahead of time. But no, Castlevania, Gothic fantasy. I kind of like vampires. A lot.
No, not you.
You know, blood. You know, the
You've
video
been playing
games
not Bloodborne. She really has been playing a lot of Bloodborne. Come to think,
it's one of the best games ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can see the inspiration in Gwen's fashion.
Okay. Do you want to talk more about the world itself?
I've mentioned a few things. I have mentioned, we're doing sort of a Victorian era fantasy, powered by what are called Arconyx crystals. These naturally occurring crystals that can absorb, store, and then direct magical energies. So they're like spell batteries, but they can be used to power brooms and machines and charge weapons and lights and air fresheners and things of that, and water heaters and things like that.
Fantasy Roombas.
They
exist.
But you also notice if you pay careful attention that more of them are concentrated in upper class areas, because this is a quote unquote punk subgenre of your Victoriana lit. And one of the problems I have with a lot of the punk genres is they don't do what punk should do. They don't challenge status quo. They give us let's look at the cool technology and the cool adventures. Yeah, it's cool adventures if you're in the upper class. But if you think about Victorian society, 86% of the population lived below the poverty line in Victorian England. So 86% were at risk for starving to death on any given day. It was crowded. It was stinky. It was gross if you weren't one of the elites. Book 1, we get to focus on the elites, the adventure, the coolness, with hints that there are things rotten in Denmark, which then get explored and brought to light. So we can talk because one of the things that speculative fiction can do well when people choose to do it is force us to think about, why are things this way? How do we change them? Or if we see something that's really awesome, well, why aren't we there? A lot of scholars have talked about science fiction as pointing to the shiny future. Well, why haven't we gotten there yet?
Where's my hover card, damn it?
I mean, the Jetsons is supposed to be happening now. Star Trek isn't exactly that far in the future if you think about it. But we don't, and the whole point of Star Trek was when humans get off their butts and actually work together. When we put aside petty differences like ethnicity, national flag waving, and we work as one, we can go to the stars, we can achieve great things. Speculative fiction, whether it be fantasy, the Victorian punks, the urban fantasies, the science fiction, these are things that should get us to ask questions about, are we on the right path? Or if this makes us uncomfortable, why are we uncomfortable? Are we uncomfortable? And I do try to avoid your basic fantasy racisms. Just because in a world where they've been around for a few thousand years, you're going to get used to seeing elves and dwarves. I don't do ethno-states. You don't have the nation of the elves, the nation of the dwarves. They all kind of live together. Not because they all get along, but because eventually that's what's going to happen. When you live next to people, you, as anthropologists tell us, you borrow. So, the world so this is the world. Parts of it are connected by high-speed rail. There are magically powered steamships that can go fast across the oceans. Can't afford that. There are more traditional steamships. And yes, I researched times for how long it would take to get to the places and how fast these ships travel, because when you do see the map, it does have and that's interesting to think about. There's a discussion on not putting maps in fantasy books now among fantasy authors.
And it sticks out in my memory, reading Lord of the Rings, there's a map. Garth Nix's Aberson trilogy, you start with Sabriel, there's a map. And it makes it so much easier to figure out, where things are. And that was when I told you, I remember we talked about it. I was like, this needs a map because I have no idea where the shit is.
I'm aware of that.
I much prefer a map.
But the trend now is maps are so 1970s.
And 80s.
And so because maps force the reader to engage
2000s?
with your world in a particular way. There's also the political nature of who's making the map and how do you want people to see the world. And a lot of authors are saying that having a map constrains them. They can't play with the distance between places and the time of getting places because readers can go, you said that it took this long to get from here to here, and by that logic, this is the pace that people are going at, therefore. So writers are talking about
That's
that.
just people being asked.
Which is most fantasy fans, sadly. Let's be quite honest. There's quite a lot in the fantasy genre where people get really nitpicky on things like that. I used to be one of them, I know. I'm reformed. But I don't see the map as something that's set in stone. I don't put all the cities on the map. I put the major cities and the cities that are involved in the story. So the big cities and any small towns. So the map will change with each volume as we introduce new things or as politics change. The map placement instead of the front of the book might move to the end of the book.
Interesting.
Because if there are changes, that could be a spoiler.
True.
So I'm taking it as a way to play with the narrative and to tell parts of the narrative in a different way. But also the thing with maps is it makes the book more expensive because reproducing an image makes printing costs go up. And in fact, the printing cost for this with the map is $250 more per volume than it is without. So it is a big investment. I like it. I would love to just put like a QR code in the book and say for the map, go here.
That's kind of cool.
But then I also have to make sure I keep it updated only to what's been published at the time.
True.
And even then, if someone picks up the series after it's been finished and they scan the QR code for book 1, they'll see the map for book 3.
And you could do 3 different QR codes.
But that also
links,
means, 3 different pages, and it's space on a website.
Do you have more plans outside of the trilogy for this world and these characters? Do you think you're going to stop at just the trilogy? Do you think you're going to write
For one of the characters, no.
more about any of the trio? Or do you think you're going to take some of the more side characters and maybe go into their
For
adventures?
at least one of the characters, no.
Who?
I'm not saying that. That's a spoiler for book 3. No. All 3 when you get there.
Me.
But,
Why they dead? I mean, prequels are an option.
you've already been told that part. At least one will
I
die.
have been told that there are going to be people dying in book 3. I do not know who.
But
That is another reason I haven't started reading book 3 yet, because I don't want to vomit up spoilers.
But a possible spin-off for one of the main characters is being considered if said character survives.
So you're still not 100%.
Oh no, I'm certain. But I'm not. But I'm using the subjunctive to keep. But that's a possibility. Beyond that, I don't know. I need to get back to Sam. Since I've started Blue Moon, that sort of needs to get done. Because I need to get to book 7, which is going to be the big one from Destiny's point of view.
Aside from the new series and the Sam Hain Chronicles, are you thinking about writing any other things? Is there anything else floating around in that brilliant mind of yours?
2 and 3 of this next year.
You already finished book 2.
Yeah, they got to be published.
I know, but
So,
I mean,
That's what I'm.
your writings in the future, because I know we're already almost done with this.
2 and
at
3
least
of this
the
come out
trilogy
next year. Blue Moon's going to get finished some point next year. I always end up doing a paranormal romance in June.
Why is that?
Pride.
Pride? Oh, no. It hit me. The question left my mouth, and it was like, oh, yeah.
I've been toying with the idea of doing sort of a epistolary serial.
What do you mean?
An epistolary style novel. Letters.
Okay. Dracula style.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Something like that. I've been looking at the journaling RPG 1,000-Year-Old Vampire and doing something with that, which will require a bit of research ahead of time to get historical facts set up for a fictional character, which I've also toyed with sort of brainstorming that character live and talking to an audience while doing it as a fundraiser for something. Not sure, but that's But again, I've always done fundraisers for the Trevor Project, but since they've gone on record as being union busters,
Looking for a new one. If anybody has any
looking
suggestions.
for a new charity. I may end up doing something that something animal related like Cat Haven, but if I'm going to do an animal charity and do it to a live streamed audience, it needs to be more than just a local charity.
On a personal crazy cat lady note, do we want to talk about our new edition?
I figure we'll talk about Pickle when we get him officially.
His name is Pickle. He's our sweet little Christmas pickle.
But we will be getting Pickle pretty soon, hopefully.
We are waiting for our friend to get him, who owned his mother, to get him fixed. And once he is fixed, we will welcome him into our home. He's very sweet, handsome. Appropriately, another black cat, because it's just our vibe.
I mean,
he's a chatty little guy. We love him.
Lavender is a black and white cat, is a tuxie, and she had
2 different litters of kittens, and each with 3 kittens, and 5 out of the 6 kittens were all solid black. One looked like her, almost.
And Pickle is the only one who is around at present, and
he's the last one.
He is handsome. He is
So
big,
sweet,
and he's loving.
playful. We said he's chatty.
He's very chatty.
We love that about him. We used to have a very, very chatty cat who would straight up have a conversation with you, and we miss him very dearly.
Yeah, if he were here, he'd probably be in the office with me.
Yeah. Salem has her moments.
He could be trusted to not destroy things.
Unlike the adorable little dumpster baby that is Salem.
And with Zuzu losing her sight, I don't want to take the chance of her getting
Lost
onto something. Yeah. So that's sort of, but no, that's, I mean, those are the plans right now, is to do some of that. I don't know how much that'll come to fruition, because, I mean, we'll see what happens after that. I've got some ideas I'm toying with.
Here's a question. Do you think that writing these books influenced your current choice of hair color and style?
No.
It's a little coincidental timing-wise.
This is the style I had before I started writing these. And Maria's hair is long.
You started?
So, can't even say Lady Maria fully influenced.
I know, it gives me Gwen vibes.
I mean, Gwen's hair was long like Lady Maria's, but then she cut it off. Something that gets noted quite a few times.
I don't think it really gets noted till book 2, huh?
The apothecary in Sonnenberg, who knew her, when she went to look for the potion to handle daywalking sickness, commented on cutting her gorgeous white hair. But there are some things happening in the books and some things that I can't really talk about because I don't want to.
Oh, that's something. Any trigger warnings for book 1?
Yes.
She so kindly puts them in the page with the copyright info and stuff.
Yeah. Graphic depictions of realistic and fantastic violence, foul language, sexual situations between consenting adults, mentions, discussions, and brief depictions of child abuse, body horror, and torture. This is dark Gothic fantasy. You will also see some of the influence of Warhammer 40K.
Really?
Yeah. Where do you think I got the Daenerys from?
Totally not that familiar with Warhammer, aside from the fact that it costs a shit ton of money and it's very sci-fi. I've seen my friends' models. Some of the models are really, really pretty. Some are slant more fantasy, so you can use them for D&D.
It's getting sort of questioned by a lot of new female gamers who are coming into it as, why is this not horny? Why is this not horny enough? And so the joke is because to get nerd boys to leave women alone, Games Workshop made a big expensive crawl that would keep them out of public so that they wouldn't have the money or the time to annoy women.
Cute.
So, but I figure once Henry Cavill's Warhammer series goes on Netflix, that will change.
Right.
But no, these
I'm genuinely curious about that because we know from pop culture that he is apparently a ginormous 40K fan. So I'm curious to see
you kind of have to be.
But it's nice to know that someone who is, such a huge fan of the property is attached.
But no, you have to be a 40K, a huge fan of 40K if you're into it because it's an expensive hobby.
What else have you been working on aside from your books? I know you have your lit review YouTube.
My lit review YouTube.
You want to talk about that for a minute?
The Book Fiend is a little bit behind because I've been dealing with allergies and neither of us has slept well for the past 2 weeks.
Insomnia has been rampant here.
So, it's a bit behind.
And I also know one of the books she's reading is one of my personal favorites, but she's having trouble getting into it.
Which is
understandable because it is related to a fandom that you were not.
Well, it's not just that. It's I am writing about French people, and I'm using a bunch of British slang. So that's real. That's taking me away from it. Because I'm recognizing the Britishisms, and it's just no self-respecting Frenchman at this time would talk like that. No self-respecting Frenchman. I mean,
But if you were going to be accurate, the chapters would be written completely in French.
But you can translate. You could call someone who's my flea or my cabbage. But there is a hello governor. Which is not French in any way. It's bad Cockney. And you're right, it is but it also reminds me of what I really wish we could do with the Gothic, but we can't.
Which is?
Experience it the way it was meant to be experienced by the original authors. The Phantom was not written as a horror story. The Phantom of the Opera was not
written as investigative journalism.
It is an It's a mystery. We're not supposed to know if the Phantom is a real person or an actual ghost. The people in Dracula and the people reading Dracula for the first time did not know he was a vampire. That wasn't common knowledge because it was Stoker who turned Vlad Tepes into a vampire, although he based it more on the Irish Avertag. Which, if you want more on the Avertag, my novel Bloodlust deals with Sam taking on an Avertag. But, he did that, so the mystery, the horror of finding out these things were real, we don't get. We go into reading Gaston Leroux knowing the Phantom of the Opera is a deformed incel musical genius living in the opera basement who compensates by murder and playing on daddy issues. We know going in that there's going to be a vampire. We don't get to experience. And even if I wanted to try to do that because of the way you market books with keywords, you'd have to put vampire in it. So people who search for vampire would know somewhere in the book there's a vampire. So we don't get that type of experience with the Gothic.
Okay. So it's Halloween. Obviously, you write a lot of fantasy and horror.
I don't do horror.
Fantasy. Girl, I read It Hungers. That is horror. And there's aspects of...
I would call it supernatural thriller.
There's aspects of horror in your books. What horror, spooky books and movies have influenced you as a writer?
Books, it's hard to say. I mean, other than The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. I mean, but that's less about the spookiness than the horror can be really sexy in ways that you don't think about.
For those who don't know, Hellbound Heart was the inspiration for
Hellraiser. And it's extremely sexy. even by today's standards. And the Hulu remake is closer than the 80s movie was in tone, which is what it is so good.
I feel like we can agree both pinheads are sexy, though.
They are, but in
a creepy way.
Not creepy. Not creepy. But Barker's work has been influential. I don't really do the detective-y, investigative Victorian early 19th century as much as I might like. Maybe the closest would be Mary Shelley, because I want to investigate issues of knowledge and arrogance.
I'll say, I see a lot of Jim Butcher in the Samhain Chronicles.
Sort of trying not to do Butcher.
I know, but there's definitely...
And there's nothing against Jim Butcher, other than he's Mr. 340,000 word novel.
I feel like Jim and Sam can hang out, though.
As long as Jim's fanboys don't do because it's the nerd boy thing of these two characters have to fight instead of would they work together? How would they get along?
Work together. It'd be interesting.
It would take a while because with Harry Dresden being I'm a powerful wizard. Sam has issues with powerful wizards.
That might be my love of the Dresden Files coming through when I read yours.
I don't think about. I think more film noir, and hence the first person narration to start the chapter, because I want just a little bit of that film noir, and her fashion is inspired by film noir, not the does she wear a hat? Does she not wear a hat? Because Harry Dresden almost never was described in the books as wearing a hat. But every cover image has Harry Dresden wearing a hat.
Every cosplayer wearing a hat.
He's wearing the same hat that Odin wears in Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Gaiman's Sandman has been an inspiration.
What did you think of the TV series?
I love the TV series. I mean, the fact that you realize that you don't hate one of my favorite Doctor Who companions from the modern era. Oswald.
I didn't like it.
But you liked her performance.
I didn't. I liked her in Sandman. I didn't like her in Doctor Who for some reason. I don't know why. She was perfectly fine.
I liked
the
Jenna Coleman.
Acting was fine. I just.
But Gaiman's work, Terry Pratchett's irreverence and willingness to point things out. I mean, I don't do a lot of the humor because I want to keep it. I don't want to do pose. If you're going to do dark, everything must be dark. I really don't like that. I like the idea that you can have bits of levity, that you can have bits of humor.
Wynn's food wiggle, the food dance.
Well, I mean,
always love that.
I operate on the assumption that while you're a fledgling for your first century, vampires can taste food. They slowly lose that taste over time. And so, as a result, she's enjoying food while she can.
I love that, though. She just does this little...
It's, with Sam, with Carmilla and Martin, you have to overspice the food. Which gets brought up the actual way to do it in Book 6. In Chapter 1 of Book 6. So there's that. What else? No, you just mentioned Spoopy. Hellraiser is the big one. Neil Gaiman's work. That's not really spooky. I'm more a fan of internet creepypasta and random things that I can bring in, that I can make allude to different things. So, you mentioned It Hungers. I wanted what the creature was to be something you wouldn't know what it was until the end. But it could be 3 or 4 different things, which took a lot of research to find those things that would overlap enough. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think of anything else horror-wise. I love me some Stephen King, but I'm more into the Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. which plays more, which you can see a little bit more in Sam than you can in anything else. But that's also your Gaslamp Fantasy type thing. That's the knight that's your Arthurian legend with guns. And he's even said that. And of course, he based it on Robert Browning's poem, Childe Roland to the Dark Tower Came. So that, and then I'm trying to not bring in the eldritch elements that King brings in with the King verse. You know, the old gods like what Randall Flagg, the Man in Black, Pennywise.
What else?
Because all of those may be the exact same entity, he said. I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to bring in the cosmic
I don't know.
horror.
I feel like the Man in Black and Pennywise have very different vibes.
But King has made that statement, and so it's the. I'm also trying not to bring in the cosmic Lovecraftian horror that Bloodborne uses, because to do cosmic horror well, you have to plan, and you have to not reduce the horror to here's the monster, which is one of the big things. I mean, I don't read a lot of horror because I don't get scared very easily with books.
Have you read anything that has genuinely scared you?
Oh, I did. There's a reference in here to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I think volume 2.
Oh.
I think it's volume
Wait,
2.
did I miss that?
Yes.
No, I think I know what it was.
We'll
We're
discuss
going to discuss this afterwards. Speaking of after, I am starting to run out of mana.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything else you would like to say?
No.
All right. Well, everybody, make sure you pick up Ghosts of Shattered Lives. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. By Rebecca St. Clair, a.k.a. Robin Shadle. Again, Amazon copies will not have the map. Where do you recommend they get a copy if they do like the map, like I do?
I always recommend people go to bookshop.org, because bookshop.org donates a portion of every sale to a local independent bookstore that you can choose.
Which, as soon as our car gets fixed, we are going to check out. There's a new one local to us. Unfortunately, our previous one closed within the last year or so, which was Cottonwood Books.
This one is on.
But we do have a new one, Red Stick Books, that we're dying to check out.
There's one even closer that's in that electric company building.
Ooh, there's a bookstore in there?
Yeah, Chloe mentioned it.
Ooh.
And they partner with bookshop.org.
I'm excited.
But, there's always Barnes & Noble and other places, but I always recommend bookshop.org, and I try to pipe them up just because they do donate independent booksellers.
I know we've talked about it in the past. Are you thinking about doing the possibility of doing any conventions in 2024?
It will depend on...
And you could get your books directly from the lovely author.
It will depend on travel budget. It will depend on the cost of that. It will depend on new variants of COVID.
Yeah.
Because all of those things are things we do have to take into consideration when thinking about travel. And I'm starting to think I probably got COVID right at the beginning, being a teacher. And because I didn't know what it was and just thought I had the flu. But, and if I did have it, which I don't want to have it again. No one does.
No.
So there's that to consider.
And it's constantly going. I have a friend who is a doctor who every time there's a vaccine, he gets it, and he had it a few weeks ago.
But it's also, conventions, you have to find the right one. Also have to deal with the politics of the state that the con is in.
I know we talked about probably one of the closer conventions to us is Sci-Fi-Con.
We did talk Sci-Fi.
We talked about doing that.
I know the issue is, of course, how many copies to bring.
And there's apparently a new convention starting in New Orleans, WasabiCon. If anyone wants to look into that. I know one of the founders of MechaCon is involved with that, which is a good sign to me.
But cons in New Orleans mean hotel prices in New Orleans, and that's even.
We
further.
don't have to get a hotel in New Orleans.
But then we have to get. Have to haul all that stuff to and from the convention center.
That part would suck. But
And so I was thinking of that because.
well, if it's, I don't know if it's going to be at the big convention center.
Well, wherever it is, it's finding it. Hauling the stock.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was talking to Danny about a friend of ours who's an artist. He's like, yeah, prints don't weigh anything. And then after 5 seconds, he went, oh, wait, you sell books. And books are heavier. Like, yeah,
He has a point.
books are heavier. And, it's getting them, and if they don't sell, and what happens if people want ebooks? How do we get that to them? How do we keep ebooks from being something that people pass around? I've already had to file 2 DMNC takedown notices on pirating sites that have pirated some of my books. In fact, my 2 bestsellers, which if Amazon gets wind of that, I could be banned from selling anything on Amazon.
Jesus.
Even though I didn't put them on the pirate site. Guys, I know you want books for free. Please don't steal books from independent authors. You're not stealing from a corporation. Cursing Raven Books is me. And the bird.
Our beloved mascot, Balti.
So, you're not stealing from you're not stealing from a company.
We're lucky if Joanna gets $100 a month on books. So, yeah, you're just being an asshole at that point.
And so, taking away Amazon takes away 80% of access to book marketplaces. So, think about that. This is, independent authorship's not like what it used to be where you could go directly to the author and we keep stock. We don't do that anymore. We distribute via print on demand instead of having everything in one room. So, pirating copies steals from us, and I don't like having to make it so that way people can't people. So that way it's more problematic, but I've got to do it to protect my IP. I spend a lot of money on, copyright, ISBN, cover designer, all of these things. I spent money on that. So that way I could have creative control to tell the queer stories that I wanted to tell without cis-het old white men in charge of publishing houses saying things like, make it straight. So, don't take money out of the hands of those who are doing things the hard way. You praise independent musicians, you praise independent artists.
Oh, they do them with all kinds of stealing stuff too. I've heard from music friends.
Napster doesn't hurt Metallica, it hurts your local band.
So feel free to stream them. No, they don't hardly get any. One of my good friends, his #1 song on Spotify for like 2 or 3 years running was my favorite song by him because I listened to it all the time. And his joke was, I listened to it enough, I made him enough money to buy a moon pie.
Royalties are not what people think they are.
And at least it was his top song until somebody listened to another song way too many times. Not even your preferred genre of music.
It's not, but for your birthday, his song Bitch Slap by the Hand of Time.
Everybody, go listen to Steve Giudice. He's an incredible Louisiana singer-songwriter. I'm so excited to see him open for Marshall Ball this Friday. But he not only is one of my favorite musicians, he's also just one of my favorite people in general.
But
he also makes really good jambalaya.
I will probably be talking about Ghosts of Shattered Lives a lot in the near future. I'll be honest, I plan to do a lot more this month, but if you know, October flew by.
It did.
October was gone before we knew it. I will post again on all my social media the playlist for background of this book.
That being said, support your independent authors, your independent artists, your independent musicians, your independent theater professionals. Support your local art scene.
If you don't have money, like, share, subscribe to social media channels. Invite your friends to like their social media channels.
Literally 95% of my Facebook posts are sharing for the music nonprofit I volunteer at, or artists friends of mine, or musicians friends of mine, or you, or support your friends.
You never know who on your friends, because we can't control social media algorithms. And the last time I tried to pay for advertising, I was spammed with right-wing Christians who were attacking me and calling my book satanic.
It was kind of funny.
It was kind of funny, but it got old really quickly. Because advertising on social media is a crapshoot, but social media is the way to go. Until you have, even if you're traditionally published, until you have the name recognition of a Butcher, a Hamilton, love me some Laurel K. Laurel K. Hamilton over Jim Butcher. The 30th Anita Blake book just came out.
Is there any plot?
I don't know.
Then that is why I would pick Jim.
No, but Laurel's more fun on social media.
I know, but the books are all porn at this point. They have been for a while. I want plot.
I know, and I know your asexuality doesn't want
I don't
porn.
like that much.
Even if there's only one sex scene, you don't even read it.
Even I give it a little skim for you because I love you and take editing seriously. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to get into like smut scenes in a book. Very rarely have I been like, ooh, that's hot. There's literally one fiction author who's actually really good.
Oh no! I have a hard time getting into smut scenes, and I like it mainly because I sit there and I nitpick.
That's not how that works.
Or I look at the word choice,
and it's like, oh, we've not heard that 1,000 times.
Which is one reason I purchased there's a book on the left side that I'm gonna have to get into, which is every word used for every part of a sex act in erotic fiction in the past 20 years.
I had $1 for every time I heard engorged member.
The best is swollen, engorged, throbbing man, spear of love. An ex of mine read that to me in a historical romance. There will be no swollen, engorged, throbbing man, spears of love in this.
No, not yet.
There won't be any at all.
Give courage time.
He doesn't have any courage right now.
He's getting there.
But,
I believe in him. I believe that he will make it happen and he will live up to his name, and he and Harissa will be the cutest couple in the world.
But support your local artists, support
Ship
your
it.
friends.
I'm captain of that ship.
You don't even, like I said, you don't have to buy everything, but they got something coming out, share it. Like the posts. Hype them up to people who might be interested. You never know who might like it. You never know who the book might mean something to. I've got people who write me after every Sam Hain book. People I've never met. People who want more, who are in love with the way I handle Carmilla's story. And given what she's gone through, what I've put her through, what she's about to get put through.
Oh, no.
So, how that's going to turn out. But, there's darkness, but if you look at any of my books, found family is always there. But you're yawning. You're about to die.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So, I think it's time we say adieu.
All right. Be kind and love each other, and we'll see you next book.
And as Peter Capaldi said, always be kind.